Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be a video about my goals for 2025 in a bookish sense and a writing sense. And usually throughout the month of December I wear Christmas sweaters in my videos, but I am overheated today, so I'm just wearing a light up necklace. So let's start with my reading goals. First, kind of a big change is I want to focus on indie books. So this includes self-published books and books from small/independent presses, as in not the big five. I've avoided this in the past, even though I felt inclined to focus on indie books, because a lot of indie books are not available from the library. They have a harder time getting into libraries. Sometimes they're not able to get, if they're self-published especially, they tend not to be able to get onto the platforms that the libraries use to order books. And so, since I mostly use the library, switching to buying a lot of books would be expensive. I do have more income than I've had in past years going into 2025, so that's really nice, and I'll be able to have a bigger book buying budget. Of course, indie books are also less likely to find in the used bookstores because there's less quantity of them out in the world, and they're bought less in the first place, so they're less likely to be given away secondhand, and that's where I buy a lot of my books. But I have a plan because a lot of indie presses are able to get into libraries if you request that the library buy the book. So that's what I'm going to be doing a lot of going into next year. I've done this to a small extent in past years, but I'm going to really focus on that this year. So some sort of guidelines that I've set for myself to try to accomplish this goal are I'm only going to read one trad published book a month. This is way down from usual, but it does have some caveats. One of the caveats is that a lot of indie presses aren't able to afford to put out audiobooks, and so on the Libby app, where I get all my audiobooks, which is a library associated app, I'm going to read whatever audiobooks I want. So any of those audiobooks don't count toward my one trad published a month. I also want to continue to use my library a lot as a way to support the library, especially going into the political climate we're going to be in the next year, 4 years. So while I'm not going to be getting as many physical trad published books from the library, I thought I could up the number of other materials I'm getting from the library, such as DVDs. When I was a kid, we used the library all the time for DVDs, especially for TV shows. Now we use streaming services a lot, but there are lots of TV shows and movies that have been taken off streaming services, and you have to rent them individually or something. So getting them from the library would be a really good option. My library doesn't do video games, unfortunately, but they do have some other types of materials that I might enjoy. My other big reading goal is to tackle my owned TBR. I have a lot of books that I have gotten from library sales or at used bookstores or thrift stores, and a few that I have bought new and yet not read. So I want to tackle that this year. In the past, physical library books have been my priority, but now that I'll be checking out less of those, I want to focus on my own TBR. Now, a lot of these, as I've said, are TradPub books, so a way that I am combining these two goals is that I can also read as many TradPub books as I want that don't count toward that one from the library if they're owned. Another couple of guidelines are that I want to read 2 of my owned physical books per month at least, and that I want to read at least 2 of my owned ebooks per month, because I have quite the backlog of owned ebooks as well. A lot of those are indie books, because indie presses will do special sales or self-published authors will do special sales, so I pick them up when they're cheap or free, and then they sit languishing in my ebook library. Now, I haven't done my end of the year tag where I will also do my statistics for the year, but looking back on my mid-year freakout tag with my mid-year statistics, I see that I did pretty good with reading a lot of books by Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors. And I also did pretty good reading a lot of queer authors or books with queer representation. However, my statistics for books with fat rep and books with disabled rep were lower than I would like. So for next year, I want to put extra emphasis on those two types of rep, while not letting down my standards for how much of the other two I'm reading as well. The last reading related goal that I have is to shift all of my reviews over to Fable and Storygraph. With Fable, since I'm going to start using it for the first time, I can import all of my old Goodreads reviews, and that'll be nice and easy straight across. With Storygraph, I did that a few years ago, but then didn't keep up with Storygraph. So that one I'm not going to be using to keep track of all the books I've ever read, but I will be doing that hopefully with Fable, because in the past that's how I used Goodreads, to keep track of like all the old books I've read, and like use them to remind me of what books I might pick for answers on questions to a tag or something like that. But now I'd like to fully move over to those two apps. The reason I want to keep using Storygraph is because they have a really good, instead of just switching to Fable, is because they have a really good system for trigger warnings. And so I use Storygraph to source the trigger warnings that you'll see at the bottom of my description in all of my review videos and most of my recommendation videos since a couple of months ago. And when you're writing your review, they have a really good system of like having a drop-down menu where you can pick out the different things that were in the book for triggers, whereas when you're just trying to come up with them off the top of your head, you're much more likely to forget some. So I really appreciate that function of Storygraph. And I also like some of the statistics. So nowadays when I go in there to get my trigger warnings to put in my description, I will also put that I read this book on this date. And so now for the last couple of months, it's been keeping track of my monthly statistics and things like that. Whereas Fable, I'm not sure as much about how those mechanics work, or if they are as good. But I do really like the social media type aspect of Fable and all of the, and the way that the book clubs work on there. I don't find them as useful the way they work on Storygraph. I will continue to use Goodreads to a certain extent because I am trying to promote a lot of indie books this year, putting reviews of them on Goodreads and sometimes Amazon is one of the best ways to help small authors and small publishing houses get their work out there, because those are still the most used platforms. Then I have a few writing goals. First of all, next month you will be seeing a writing vlog, and I'm going to start doing monthly writing vlogs, at least until I finish my draft of the book I'm working on right now, because I have a deadline, and that is in April because I have booked an editor. So my first goal is to finish that story. I'm calling it the Dragon Shifter story. Don't have a title yet, but it's a romance about two dragon shapeshifters. So as I say in my vlog, I want to write 10,000 words of it each month. That will get me to 50,000 words by the beginning of April. After April, and having had my book edited, I will need to find a cover artist. I will need to find sensitivity readers. Then at some point around there, I'm going to want to let my parents read it. I'm definitely going to make a censored version for my dad because this book has spicy scenes. I'm considering letting my mom read it as is because we both read the same kind of spicy books. So she might be able to help me out with that. But also I'm considering having her read the censored version as well because it's too awkward. Then I'm going to need to decide what platform to publish on. The easiest is of course Amazon, but I would like to move away from that if possible. I'm planning on self-publishing this one. I do have another story or two that I'm planning on pitching to small presses. I have a couple of small presses that I really like, that make the process easy. But for this one, I would like to self-publish. I have not yet done enough research to decide how I want to publish it. Then I need to find ARC readers. I might put the call out to some of y'all for that. But also I have some mutuals on other platforms who might be up for it. And then I want to publish it during next year. Hopefully between April and December of next year, I'll have time to do all of that stuff. While I'm doing all this admin stuff, I don't want to stop like writing. So sometime in there between April and December, I would also like to restart writing my Empire story, the one with the prince and the lady who's a fire mage, and she's asexual, sex repulsed like me. So I would like to get restarted on that, but until this Dragon Shifter one has reached its 50,000 words, and probably a little bit of self-editing before the professional editing, I need to focus on that one. So those are all my bookish and writing goals for 2025. Do still feel free to recommend me tried published books. I'll just put them on my audiobook TBR. And then thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something green? Bye!